college football got underway last weekend. We'll have more games this weekend and through the rest of the calendar into January. Justin Feldkamp of ABC 13 Sports joined me on the Sports Buffet podcast. We review Virginia's win over Richmond as well as the Hokies win over Georgia Tech on Monday night. And Justin gives a little dap to the Ohio Bobcats. It's Justin Feldkamp talking college football on the Sports Buffet podcast. Justin Feldkamp of ABC 13 joins me here on the Sports Buffet podcast. The Virginia Tech Hokies opened the college football season with a win against Georgia Tech, but I said it earlier in the week, if there were a lot of cardiac patients at Lane Stadium on Monday night, they had their hearts tested for sure, because it was anything but a gimme for the Hokies. What did you see good, first off, from Virginia Tech on Monday night?
Well, they had to be good when they needed to be good, and that was really the last 44 seconds of the game, or definitely the fourth quarter. The offense was just lulling everybody to sleep. They had the one touchdown pass from Logan Thomas to Eric Martin in the first quarter, but other than that, the offense just could not move the ball. Logan admittedly said he played like garbage, and initially after the game, and then I guess he reviewed the tape and thought that he didn't play as bad as he thought right after the game, but he still didn't think he performed up to his own personal standards. But then in the fourth quarter, they turned it around. They put some drives together, sustained drives, and got stopped and had to kick a field goal, but then they scored a touchdown with Dimitri Knowles, and then the final drive of the game with 44 seconds to go, they had to get in field goal range at least, and they moved the ball 51 yards in 38 seconds. So that was impressive. And I think the other thing was they are trying to find some wide receivers, and it's just one game, but Corey Fuller showed that he can play. He's got a fast 40 time, 4.33, and he found ways to get open, and Logan Thomas finally got around to being a little more accurate and hitting him in stride, and had two big pickups in that final drive, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of who emerges as the new Danny Cole and the new Jared Boykin for Tech.
How do you grade Michael Holmes on his first performance?
It's hard. It seemed like they passed the ball a lot more, and it seemed as if that reason, because they had so many unproven wide receivers, that Georgia Tech was going to try to stuff the run, and it seemed like that's what they did. They kind of opened up a few holes for J.C. Coleman and a few holes for Michael Holmes late in the game, but it's hard to evaluate because it's the first game and it's an ACC opponent. It's not some cupcake like they've got this week in Austin Peay, so you can't really say, well, he didn't have an explosive run or he didn't score a touchdown. He didn't do that well. I'd probably give him maybe a B minus, I'd say.
With that being said, too, and, obviously Logan, I think, is going to be more critical on himself probably than just about anybody is. I don't think Logan Thomas can afford to play like this, and Virginia Tech is going to get a lot of wins just because they can't rely on the running game right now. Am I accurate in that statement, or does Logan really have to step up the play?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can start relying more on the running game when that offensive line begins to gel as one unit. One starter coming back, Andrew Miller, the center of Bassett. Everybody else has experience, but that experience has basically been in practice. None of them are true freshmen or sophomores or redshirt freshmen. All of them are upperclassmen, but asking the coach out there, it's going to take some time to figure out, okay, whose assignments are what, and what do we need to do on this play. And when you begin to gel and you begin to become a cohesive unit, that's when you start seeing some big gains out of your running backs.
UVA is going to have a lot of attention on them this week because they play Penn State. We'll get to that in a minute. But the win against Richmond I thought was impressive. And, to me, the more Michael Rocco stays on the field, the better, because you avoid a quarterback controversy in terms of Phillip Sims, even though I think we all know he can play. Based on what you've read, seen, heard, and everything about UVA this past week, your impressions?
Yeah, I was impressed with Rocco. He threw for 311 yards. It was the most passing yards of any UVA quarterback in week one in the history of UVA football.
Wow.
So that is obviously something that should not be taken lightly. And, we found a lot of different receivers. I did like how he distributed the ball. Danny Rocco basically said that he was going to try to stop the run and force his nephew Michael to make some plays, and he was able to make some plays. Again, it's against a FCS level opponent, so it'll be interesting to see what they do against a Big Ten team. Obviously, not one of the better Big Ten teams, but a Penn State team who has Division I caliber athletes. So it'll be a different story this week, but I would still suggest that UVA should be a strong touchdown favorite at least.
I'm going to give you a moment or two to brag on the alma mater real quick.
Yeah, Ohio Bobcats, man, took it to the Nittany Lions. It was a fantastic, huge win, definitely the biggest win in Ohio football history, and Frank Solich has got that crew working really well. They won 10 games last year, won the famous Idaho Bowl, the first bowl win in Ohio history, got 10 wins, and picking up where they left off. One of the SportsIllustrated.com writers picked them to go 12-0 and potentially be a BCS buster, and the biggest obstacle that they had was Penn State in Week 1, and mission accomplished so far. They got New Mexico State, and then the rest of their MAC schedule, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm one to think that they're possibly, potentially going to falter in one of their conference games just because that's kind of how things happen. It's just one of those things where they play each other every year, they kind of know tendencies and all that kind of stuff, so I think that's a possibility, but it was definitely a fantastic win for Ohio fans, young and old.